The storm rose before dawn, black as old iron. The rig trembled, lights flickered, and beneath the howl of the wind came a deeper sound, like breath drawn from the ocean's heart. I was beneath the main deck when the drill stopped. The silence struck first, heavy and wrong, and then came the screaming from the sea. Thin, layered voices twisting through the fog like something alive. My radio hissed, but no one answered. The pipes shuddered. I ran to the railing, heart hammering, and the water below churned in spirals that glowed faint green. Who screamed beneath the surface if no one ever lived there? The voices rose again, louder, closer, until the sea itself seemed to cry out in grief. 13 minutes. That's how long the drill was silent before the world changed. The captain called for a halt, but no one moved. The sound wasn't gone. It had gone inside. The walls seemed to hum with it. The pipes breathed like throats. I swore I heard whispers in the steel. We all did. When power surged back, the gauges read deeper than we'd ever drilled. Impossibly deep. It felt like something below had listened, then answered. When the hum faded, the ocean fell still, unnaturally calm. No waves, no wind. The fog closed like a wall, sealing us from the horizon. I saw Thomas whisper to himself, counting under his breath, as though the silence hurt him. The captain barked orders, but his voice sounded far away. I looked down into the black and thought I saw a movement. Slow, deliberate, as though something vast turned beneath us. At minute 12, the sea began to glow again. This time, softer, like a lure. The captain tried to restart the drill, but the power cut on its own. Then came a voice through the intercom, clear as daylight. You've gone too deep. It wasn't anyone from the crew. The 13th minute ended with a single vibration through the hull, like a heartbeat. We froze. Beneath us, the ocean began to rise, not in waves, but as a single swelling mass, lifting the rig like it weighed nothing. The lights blew out. The sea screamed once more. This time, it sounded like our names. The storm vanished as if erased from the world. The sea turned to glass, and the air carried a faint humming, too perfect, too even. We stood in that silence, listening for anything human. The captain ordered a systems check, but half the panels were dead. Mira traced condensation on the steel with her fingertips, whispering that the metal was breathing again. I didn't answer. The green glow pulsed below the deck, steady as a heartbeat. For a moment, I thought I could hear voices beneath the hum, chanting, low and rhythmic. Every word seemed to echo my own thoughts. It wasn't madness, it was invitation. We gathered in the mess hall. No wind, no engine hum, just the slow creak of the rig shifting in the tide. The captain tried the satellite phone. It clicked, no tone, only breathing. Mira turned up the emergency log feed, but it showed no records of the last 13 minutes. Thomas muttered that time didn't pass right anymore. Then the table began to vibrate, slow and faint, like something alive beneath us. I could feel it through my boots, steady, measured, almost deliberate. A knock from below. The captain led us to the lower maintenance corridor where the main drill shaft descended. It was quiet there, too quiet, like sound refused to exist. The walls dripped salt water, though there was no leak. Mira examined the shaft window and her breath caught. The drill chain was turning again. We hadn't started. Slowly, impossibly, the machinery moved on its own, groaning deep below as though something vast was winding it from beneath. We stared in silence until the radio on my belt crackled alive and whispered one word. Deeper. The shaft began to hum, slow and uneven, like the pulse of something waking beneath miles of pressure. Mira's voice trembled as she said the drill was moving without power. The captain ordered her to shut it down, but her hands froze above the controls. The machinery groaned, deep and wet, and a cold mist poured from the vents, smelling of rust and brine. Thomas backed away, shaking his head. I stepped closer and saw the steel walls of the shaft flex, breathing in and out, as if the rig itself had lungs. Then the hum deepened into something like a moan. Then suddenly it stopped again. Dead silence, as if the ocean held its breath. Mira whispered that the readings were climbing, though nothing moved. The gauges spun on their own, faster and faster, then shattered with a crack like gunfire. A gust of air rushed upward through the shaft, cold enough to sting. The lights dimmed, and for a moment, through the glass I saw something below. A shape vast as a mountain, turning slowly in the dark. It had eyes, and they were open. We suited up to go below. The lower decks hadn't been entered since construction. The pressure locks sealed. Warning lights, long dead. Captain Rourke said we needed to check for a breach, though we all knew it was something else calling us downward. The air thickened the lower we went, heavy as oil. Metal dripped with condensation that smelled like the sea. Each step echoed strangely as if the sound curved back toward us. Mira led the way with her lamp, eyes fixed on the dark stairwell ahead. Beneath our boots, the hum returned. Slow, patient, like breathing. At the bottom level, the air was warm. Too warm for the deep. The metal floor vibrated under our boots. The captain checked the gauges. They showed normal pressure, yet water trickled upward through the cracks as if gravity had changed its mind. Mira knelt to collect a sample, but the droplet on her glove shimmered faintly, like it was alive. Thomas whispered that the ocean wanted in. The lights flickered again, and for a split second, every shadow leaned toward the drill chamber door. We entered the chamber. The hum grew louder, almost a melody now, rising and falling with the rhythm of the sea. Pipes snaked along the ceiling, sweating and pulsing, as though filled with blood instead of oil. Mira's lamp illuminated a strange pattern etched into the main bulkhead. Circles intersecting like a map or a sigil. The captain ran his hand over it and drew back as if burned. The air shivered. For the first time, we saw movement through the shaft glass. Shapes drifting upward, slow and deliberate, as if climbing toward us. The patterns began to move. Light crawled across the metal in thin veins, tracing the circles until they spun slowly like gears. Mira gasped that it matched the drill's movement logs. The same rhythm. Captain Rourke shouted to pull back, but the floor trembled violently, throwing us to our knees. Through the shaft window, the green glow flared, bright enough to sting the eyes. I heard a deep groan, like the ocean itself, turning in its sleep. Then, it spoke again. Through the metal, through the air, through us. No words, just the echo of thought, ancient and endless. Mira collapsed, clutching her head. The captain dragged her back, but the steel beneath us began to warp, forming slow ripples. The drill chain groaned, pulling upward as if caught on something immense. I looked through the glass one last time, and beneath the green light, I saw a vast shape rising, its eyes opening like lanterns in the deep. Whatever we had awakened was no machine. The rig woke before we did. Doors that we had locked now stood open, and corridors bent in ways they never had. Like the metal had learned a new set of rules overnight. The air felt thick and warm, tasting faintly of salt and old smoke. Alarms stuttered without rhythm, then fell silent as if shushed. The captain ordered a full shutdown, but the switches answered slower than our hands, like they were listening to someone else. The sea below did not move. It held itself still as glass, awaiting us. We moved as a knot, shoulders touching in the narrow hall, each of us pretending the others were steady. From the lower deck, a low chant rose through the pipes. Not words, but shape and pulse, guiding, coaxing. We told ourselves it was pressure. Old ducks, heat, we did not believe it. The rig's bones creaked and the floor shifted half an inch, a quiet nod to the will beneath us. We reached the auxiliary control room, where the backup lines fed the drill. The panels looked normal until we touched them. Then the gauges spun of their own accord, calm, almost playful, and stopped on deeper numbers than the shaft could measure. Mira whispered that the readings matched the circles on the bulkhead. I remembered the slow turning of that mark, the gentle spin that felt like breath. The captain tried to isolate the wellhead. The lever resisted, soft at first, then firm, as though a hand pushed back from the other side. The lights dimmed to a low green dusk, and the glass in the pressure window fogged from within. When I wiped it clear, there were prints on the inside. 5 long arcs, not human. We held our breath together. The room listened with us. The first real break came without noise. A seam parted above the catwalk with a neat sigh, and warm brine rained down in a slow sheet. The chant in the pipes shifted key, a low comfort, like a lullaby for the deep. We hurried to seal the breach, our hands moving on old drills, while our minds drifted toward the window in the floor where the glow lived. I felt it then. The pull. Not on skin, not on muscle, but on something that sits inside the chest when you stand before a grave. Thomas muttered a count to ground himself. Mira called numbers, firm and clear, and the captain answered with steady yeses, the kind that hold a crew together. The seam drew shut under our clamps, but the brine did not stop. It flowed upward, against sense, as if the ocean had learned to climb. We made for the main deck to vent pressure. The sky was wrong. No wind, no cloud motion. The horizon bent in a slow ring, like we sat in the bowl of a giant eye. The crane cables hummed with a tune none of us wanted to know. When we opened the vent, the air that rushed out smelled of old, hot stone. The deck plates warmed under our boots. Patterns bled through the paint. Those same circles, faint as watermarks, drifting and settling like pollen. The captain told us to hold our nerve. He had that voice that could quiet a room even while his hands shook behind his back. Then the radio spoke with our voices, but none of us had pressed send. It asked a plain, gentle word. Down? It wasn't a command. It was a welcome. The choice came quick. Either we let the rig be steered from below or we reclaim our hands and break free. The captain set his jaw and told us we were going to cut the main chain. It felt like speaking against a church bell. Every bolt we loosened drew a new whisper from the deep, lighter now, almost pleased. Mira ran the sequence clean and sure. Thomas held the light steady, no shake at all. I took the last pin. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then the rig shuddered, not with fear, but with relief, as if it had waited for us to dare. The chant faded, the glow dimmed, and in that hush, far below, something vast exhaled and began to rise, not in anger, but in answer. Our action had not closed the door. It had opened it. Cut loose from the chain, the rig drifted an inch, then steadied as if a hand steadied it from below. The chant was gone, yet something gentler moved through the steel. Like breath after sobbing, we stood in a circle on the deck. No one speaking. The sky a pale bruise over a flat sea. The captain raised his hand, not to command, but to hold us together. The engineer said the gauges read normal, but the numbers felt like a smile. The electrician asked if silence could be a warning. I thought of the prints on the glass, the circle marks, the way water climbed as if taught. If it wanted to harm us, why teach? A low tremor answered. Not threat, but invitation. The vent covers quivered, and warm air rose carrying a faint scent of old stone and kelp. The deck lights dimmed without dying, as if asking for our eyes. We opened the main hatch, and the stairwell glowed, drawing us down to the place where our fear had first learned to listen. We descended to the chamber where the circles had turned. The air was warmer now, the mist thin and bright, like dust in a sunbeam. The bulkhead marks glowed faintly, and then faded as we approached, as if yielding space. The engineer traced one circle with a gloved finger, and the metal answered with a soft tone that matched our heartbeats. The captain asked for options. The electrician named them: seal, retreat, or speak. Speak to what? To whom? The floor hummed in slow pulses that shaped themselves into rhythm. We laid our tools down and waited. No machine moved, no sea pounded. Just the quiet of two worlds, leaning toward one another. From the shaft glass, a pale glow rose like dawn through deep water. And within it, slow shapes turned without haste or hunger. The thought came not as a word, but a feeling. You are not trespass. You are witness. The glow deepened until the chamber felt like a lantern turned inside out. The pressure sang along the pipes, not the old chant, but a careful measure used to teach a child. The engineer spoke softly, asking if the drill had heard it. The air answered with a tremor that was neither yes nor no, only age. The captain stepped forward and said we had cut the chain, that we would not dig deeper. The floor eased beneath our boots, as if a long-held strain relaxed. Across the glass, a pattern formed, circles within circles, aligning with the marks on the wall, then drifting into a new shape none of us knew. The electrician whispered that it was not a lock, but a map, a path. The thought rose again. Witness, not prey, not enemy. Then the lights shifted from green to a warmer hue, like the last color of evening. Something below turned its gaze upward, and for once, it did not feel like doom. We followed the map the only way we could, by stillness. We shut the last humming relay, dimmed the chamber lights, and let the rig rest like a ship at anchor. The pipes quieted until even our breaths felt loud. In that plain hush, the shapes below drew nearer, not to strike, but to be seen. The engineer spoke once more, promising to raise the drill head and mark this site as closed. The captain seconded it, voice steady like a lighthouse beam. The electrician stood ready at the breaker, eyes on the captain's hand. I braced the manual winch, and the gear teeth answered with slow, honest music. The glow rose with our effort. A matched pace, a shared bearing. When the head cleared the window, it was untouched, yet the metal around it bore fine rings, as if the sea had written on it with patience. The meaning was simple. Remember, when the drill head locked, the rig settled like a living thing slipping back into its bones. The sea outside found its wind again. The horizon uncurled. We stood together, quiet in the afterglow. Not victory. Understand. The engineer packed the tools with careful hands. The electrician breathed out the numbers he had kept to survive the silence, and for the first time, they sounded like a blessing. The captain called for a full log, not to bury the day, but to bind it. A final tremor rose through the chamber, softer than a heartbeat, and a last thought pressed against our minds. Keep the door closed. Keep the memory open. We sealed the hatch. Above, the deck lights warmed to their old color. Somewhere below, something vast rolled away into its dark country, and the sea spoke no more of screams, only of depth. Morning came like a slow turn of a wheel. The sea breathed in normal waves again, and the metal of the rig cooled to its old voice. Creaks, taps, sighs that belonged to wind and rust, not thought. We walked the deck in quiet steps, listening for anything that did not fit. The hatch seals held. The drill head sat locked and clean as if polished by sleep. We logged everything in plain words, refusing the urge to dress the night as legend. Yet the mind kept returning to the circles and the soft answer that rose from the dark. We had not been chased. We had been seen. That felt like a weight taken off and a new weight put on. When the coffee boiled, it smelled of normal mornings, but the first sip carried a taste of warm stone. The radio gave us weather reports that matched the sky. All the same, the deck rails were damp with a fine pattern of rings, like dew taught a different lesson. We opened the main log to write the account for those who would come after us. Plain facts first. Then the choices, then the reasons. The pen felt heavier than it should, like each line pressed into the steel as well as paper. We argued the words we would use for what rose beneath us. Not creature, not machine, not hazard. Something old and patient that learned our shape as we learned its. The world loves names, but this did not fit a name. The page took our best efforts and still left space we could not answer. From the vents came no chant, only warm air that carried the clean smell of tides. We decided on a marker buoy and a wide circle of exclusion. A keep-out that was also a keep-safe. We would send it up the chain with the same care we used on a failing line. Slow, clear, unafraid. The buoy assembly took the morning. We tuned the beacon to a frequency that would not wake what slept below and set the broadcast to speak in warnings fit for ships and men. While we worked, the deck plates kept a gentle warmth, like a hand near but not on the skin. It was easy work, honest and rhythmic, and that steadiness let strange thoughts rise. What if the 13 minutes had been a lesson? A pause to show us the depth beneath our rules. What if the circles were not marks of ownership, but courtesies, lines, drawn so we would not step where we did not belong? We locked the beacon, tested redundancy, and checked power twice over. The wind freshened. Gulls returned in a loose, laughing line. A tremor came up through the girders, light as a cat passing a threshold. It felt like approval more than warning. Orhi when saynish was in shukch, yetterzingertwarty, in shah. At noon we lowered the buoy. It slipped into the water with a clean sound and took its place, light blinking a soft, slow pulse. The horizon grew honest again, wind lanes running chop. The easy play of sun, relief moved through us in a quiet way. Not cheer but release. We ate standing up, too key to sit. The first test ping came back from the buoy, steady as a heartbeat. Then, a second echo returned from below. No alarm, only a longer wave that matched our interval and leaned a shade after it, like an echo that chose to be late. We stared at the speaker and did not move. The air around us seemed to lean as well, metal settling to new knowledge. If this was speech, its first word was courtesy. The second was patience. The third was a promise to wait, so long as we did. We thought the day would end in that balance, but evening had one more turn. The sky lowered to copper and the sea drew quiet again. Not the glass of dread, but a hush like a chapel before song. The beacon kept time. From far below, a slow lift pressed the rig, a finger's width higher, then eased down, as if testing weight. The rail dew formed in rings once more, finer than before, ordered like script. We stood together and watched the circles fade with the last light. The radio stayed clear. The gauges read true. Our hearts kept their simple pace. Still, the feeling rose that we had been set a gentle task we did not yet see. In the hush, the old thought brushed our minds. Keep the door closed, keep the memory open, and then a new shade of it. Return when the sea is calm and the moon is small. Night took the deck in soft steps. We looked at one another and knew Act 7 would begin at dawn. Dawn found the sea quiet, and the moon a thin chip in the brightening sky. We moved with care, not from fear now, but from respect. Each touch on steel like a word spoken in a chapel. The buoy kept its slow pulse. The rails wore new rings of dew, finer than lace. We opened the hatch, not to drill, not to chase, only to stand witness where the glow once breathed. The air rose warm from below, steady as a calm lung. No chant came. Instead, there was the hush of listening, and in that hush we understood the rule. Keep what is yours, leave what is not. Remember the line. The captain set a hand on the lever and did not pull. The engineer laid tools down as if laying flowers. The electrician checked the breaker and then stepped back. We waited without clocks. Time, perhaps, waited with us. Far beneath, something turned, not toward hunger, but toward greeting, and the rig eased half an inch like a bow. We descended together to the chamber of circles. The marks on the bulkhead woke in a slow bloom, not blazing, only enough to show the path our thoughts took. The floor was warm, the glass clear as a well. When we looked down, shapes moved like hills under moonlight, patient and unafraid. No voice pressed inside our heads. The lesson had been given, the test passed. What came now was a sharing. The memory of pressure older than ships, the rhythm of tides before maps, the long breath that makes storms and ends them. None of it asked for worship. All of it asked for measure. The captain spoke plain words of closure and care. The engineer answered with procedures. The electrician promised redundancies that could not be fooled by wonder. The chamber listened, and the circles stilled, then flowed into a single ring, wide and clear, the size of a doorway that no one would open. We stood there until the glow gentled to candlelight. The sea answered in kind. Through the glass, the light folded into rings that matched our buoy's beat, then slipped a breath behind it, like a friend who prefers to walk half a step back. In that sway, we felt the count. 13 slow measures, a pause, then 13 again. Not a curse, not a trap, a breathing space. We had mistaken a held breath for a scream. The memory of last night returned, made smaller, made clear. If we kept our line and closed our door, the deep would keep its own and leave our small fires to burn. We gave the promise in the only language we owned. Bolts set right, valves shut clean, logs written plain. The warmth in the floor eased. The glow thinned to green smoke and drifted like mist into the metal. What remained was the honest hum of machinery, the creak of a ship's bones at rest, and the quiet pride of work done true. We rose to the deck to mark the place. The buoy's light kept its patient blink. Gulls traced loose white letters across the morning. Wind came up from the right quarter, salt clean and honest. We set the exclusion radius, tuned the beacon again, and sent the report with clear coordinates and plain warnings. Not a tale of monsters, not a prize to chase, just a line on water that asks for care. The rail dew shaped one last ring and slid away. The rig settled into its old voice. The sky opened to a simple blue, and the horizon curled true. We stood in silence that felt like a handshake. The thought brushed us once more. Not command, only consent. Keep the door closed, keep the memory open. We answered with a nod. None of us saw, but all of us felt. The kind of agreement that binds a crew tighter than rope. By evening, the deck lights warmed to their usual gold, and the sea spoke only of depth. We ate at the steel table with the doors open to wind. And our talk was small and good. Tools that needed oil, a hinge that wanted grease, coffee that finally tasted like coffee. No one named the thing beneath us. We did not need to. The lesson would remain in the work. Check the line, honor the mark, leave the door shut. When night fell, the moon thinned to a shy smile, and the buoy kept time like a patient heart. We walked one last round and felt the rig's weight sure beneath our boots. The scream we had heard was never pain. It was the hush before breath. The sea took that breath now, slow and easy, and gave it back. We turned out the lights and let the dark be itself. In the quiet, the world felt older and kinder, and the morning felt already on its way.